The film commences with an elderly, inebriated man named Pflueger engaging in an unusual activity, exhuming a grave adorned with religious symbols. He appears to be conducting some form of ritual. After some effort, Pflueger successfully retrieves a human skull from the grave, which unexpectedly emits white smoke, knocking him backward. Upon regaining consciousness on the ground, Pflueger exults, seemingly having accomplished his mission. The narrative then shifts to a teenager named Kelly, who is browsing in a convenience store. Here, it is revealed that Kelly has a peculiar habit of chewing on paper, leading his classmates to derisively nickname him Trash Can. While perusing the store's items, he encounters Dominique, his childhood friend and crush, but hesitates to engage in conversation. Outside the store, Kelly is confronted by school bullies, namely Nelson, Tony, Reed, and Brad. They mock him for his unusual consumption habits, such as ingesting paper and styrofoam. Just as they intensify their harassment, Dominique intervenes, imploring them to desist. This further enrages the bullies, who proceed to thrust Kelly's face into a trash bin. Fortunately, the store owner intervenes, putting an end to the bullying and chasing the tormentors away. In the subsequent scene, Kelly arrives at school only to discover that the bullies had filmed the store altercation and disseminated it online. As he traverses the school's hallways, he becomes the subject of ridicule among his peers. After school, Kelly returns home and his mother, Bernice, inquires about his day. Kelly omits any mention of the bullying and instead remarks that Dominique spoke to him for the first time. Overjoyed by this revelation, Bernice encourages him to ask Dominique out on a date. Meanwhile, an indigenous man named Red Elk stumbles upon the previously desecrated grave and offers prayers. It is subsequently revealed that a hidden power within the grave has been stolen, leaving Red Elk disheartened as he was entrusted with its safekeeping. The following day, Kelly falls ill due to his excessive consumption of paper and styrofoam. Bernice promptly summons the family doctor, who suggests seeking a psychologist's assistance for Kelly's eating disorder. He subtly implies that Kelly's peculiar behavior might be attributed to the absence of male figures in the household. However, in reality, the doctor is enamored with Bernice and harbors ulterior motives. On the same day, Pflueger is seen in town, professing his ability to heal people. He demonstrates this by alleviating an elderly woman's joint pain. Coincidentally, Bernice is present and is impressed by his skills. Believing that Pflueger might be able to help Kelly, she invites him to her residence. As Bernice momentarily departs to retrieve her car, Red Elk confronts Pflueger, admonishing him that the powers were not meant for him. Red Elk even offers to assist Pflueger in relinquishing his healing abilities. However, Pflueger declines, leading to a skirmish during which Red Elk injures himself, as the powers Pflueger acquired from the grave protect their possessor. Despite Red Elk's warnings about the consequences, Pflueger dismisses him and departs. After some time, Pflueger arrives at Bernice's home and attempts to heal Kelly. However, he experiences intense pain when he touches Kelly's chest and quickly withdraws his hand. He then excuses himself to use the bathroom and consumes a specific drug before making another attempt. Regrettably, during this second attempt, Pflueger accidentally burns Kelly's chest with his cigarette and collapses to the floor, succumbing to his injuries. Curiously, as Pflueger dies, Kelly's condition improves, and he stands up, feeling unusually energetic. Shortly thereafter, the police arrive at the scene and remove Pflueger's body. They attribute his demise to a heart attack. Subsequently, Kelly notices that the burn on his chest has inexplicably healed, and he has undergone certain physical changes. It becomes evident that Pflueger's healing powers have been transferred to Kelly. The following day, Kelly accidentally cuts his finger while repairing his bicycle, but a remarkable phenomenon occurs. The wound promptly heals itself and disappears. He attempts to share this revelation with his mother, but she remains skeptical. On his way to school, he encounters Dominique and Sarah, who are astonished by his improved health. Once they depart, Nelson's brother Reed approaches Kelly and initiates an unprovoked assault. Surprisingly, when Reed strikes Kelly in the stomach, Reed experiences the pain, while Kelly remains unharmed. Reed attempts to inflict harm using a wooden block, but it backfires, resulting in his own injury. Realizing his inability to defeat this transformed version of Kelly, Reed flees bearing facial bruises. Later that evening, Gus, Reed's father and the school's football coach, visits Kelly's residence to ascertain what transpired with his son. Kelly explains that Reed had come to attack him, but ended up injuring himself. Gus, naturally, remains incredulous and disputes the account with Bernice. Nonetheless, Bernice insists that Gus leave and firmly shuts the door behind him. Once he departs, Kelly confides in his mother about his newfound ability to transfer pain, ensuring that no one can harm them again. He substantiates this claim by demonstrating his tolerance to the heat of a cigarette lighter, which causes no harm to his palm. The subsequent day, while in class, Kelly's imagination takes a wild turn as he discovers Dominique's hairband. In his mind's eye, he envisions intimate scenarios involving both Dominique and Sarah in a threesome encounter. Astonishingly, the sensations and fantasies he conjures begin to manifest in real life, affecting Dominique and Sarah in unexpected ways. Both girls experience peculiar sensations in their bodies, leading to unanticipated reactions. Sarah even lets out a scream of delight right in the classroom. Later, at an evening party, Nelson acts inappropriately by lifting Dominique without her consent. This infuriates Kelly, prompting him to confront Nelson and demand that he put Dominique down. Just as a confrontation between the two boys appears imminent, Gus intervenes and separates them. Gus then admonishes Kelly, hinting that one day he will discover the power he possesses and attempt to eradicate it. After the party concludes, as everyone heads home, Brad and his friends encounter Kelly, who is riding his bicycle. Still harboring resentment from the previous incident, they attempt to push him off the road with their car. Unfortunately, Brad loses control, colliding with and running over Kelly. The impact seems severe, but when the dust settles, it becomes apparent that Brad has suffered a crushed skull, resulting in his demise, while Kelly remains unharmed. A crowd gathers at the scene, and Kelly covertly explains the situation to Dominique, divulging his extraordinary ability. Meanwhile, Nelson and his friends provide false information to the police, asserting that Brad swerved to protect Kelly because he was cycling in the middle of the road. However, a preliminary investigation conducted by police officer Adler exonerates Kelly of any wrongdoing. Simultaneously, Red Elk learns about Pflueger's passing and pays a visit to his grave. After analyzing the soil, he deduces that Pflueger lost his powers before his demise. Upon hearing about Kelly's survival after being struck by a car, Red Elk decides to visit him at his workplace. During their encounter, he confronts Kelly about the powers, and after some hesitation, Kelly confesses to having been treated by Pflueger. The following day, during lunch at a cafe, Kelly and Dominique engage in a conversation about movies. Unbeknownst to Kelly, Dominique holds romantic feelings for him and secretly hopes he will ask her to a movie night. To her delight, he extends an invitation, and they agree to watch a film together soon. At the same time, Nelson and his friends grow increasingly resentful as they observe Kelly moving forward with his life without any apparent consequences. They decide to seek vengeance for Brad's death and teach Kelly a lesson. Later that night, upon learning about Kelly and Bernice's schedule, Nelson and his friends wait for Bernice to depart for her night shift. However, Bernice falls ill and decides to forego her shift. Seeing his mother's condition, Kelly urges her to rest and heads into town to purchase medicine for her. Observing a car leaving the residence, Nelson and his group mistakenly believe it is Bernice and decide to frighten her. They attach Kelly's trailer home to their truck and forcefully tow it. With Bernice still inside, the trailer is inadvertently dragged away, causing her to fall from the couch. Due to a faulty detachment of the chain, the group leaves it in the truck after damaging the trailer. Consequently, a gas pipe bursts in the kitchen, filling the house with gas. Startled, Bernice attempts to exit the house but stumbles over a lamp and collapses to the floor. Regrettably, the lamp catches fire, and the gas ignites, resulting in a massive explosion. Following some time, Kelly arrives at the scene and rushes into the trailer in a desperate attempt to save his mother. Sadly, he arrives too late, as Bernice has already passed away. This deeply traumatic experience profoundly affects Kelly, and he grieves for his mother's death amidst the raging fire. After some time, Officer Adler observes burn marks on Kelly's body and admits him to the hospital. In the subsequent scene, Red Elk approaches Adler at the hospital and informs him about Kelly's unique power. Red Elk suggests discussing the matter with Kelly, but Adler deems it inappropriate to delve into ancient folklore during such a challenging period in Kelly's life. Acknowledging the sensitivity of the situation, Red Elk advises Adler to reach out when the time is more suitable. The following day, miraculously healing his burn marks, Kelly proceeds directly to his mother's funeral, where he receives support from Dominique. She reassures him that expressing his emotions through tears doesn't signify weakness and that his mother will forever be proud of him. Kelly then shares his intention to leave town, which disappoints Dominique. After sharing a heartfelt kiss, she departs. Following this, Kelly visits Pflueger's grave within the same cemetery and attempts to consume a wild weed growing on it in the hope that it may relinquish his powers. However, as soon as he chews the plant, he becomes nauseated and starts vomiting. Sarah, who happens to be nearby, observes the incident from a distance. Later, Officer Adler drives Kelly to social services and discusses his mother's accident with him. Upon learning that the trailer fell before the gas explosion, Kelly becomes convinced that it was not an accident and that someone intentionally pulled it to undermine its support. Meanwhile, Nelson and his friends are driving in their truck, displaying no remorse for their actions. They are en route to the river bend to unwind. On their way, they encounter Adler driving Kelly out of town and taunt him. When Kelly notices the truck, he promptly realizes that they are responsible for his mother's death. Without wasting any time, he leaps out of the moving car and stealthily follows them to the river bend. Later, while Tucker is swimming and the others are playfully throwing stones at him, Kelly secretly grabs Tucker's shirt and uses it to strangle himself. This leads to Tucker struggling to breathe and stay afloat, ultimately resulting in his drowning in the river as Nelson and the others look on in horror. They rush to help him, but it is too late, and the bully has died. Kelly arrogantly reveals himself as responsible for Tucker's death. He attempts to confront Nelson, but Officer Adler arrives at the scene. Kelly quickly flees to avoid trouble, and the bullies do their best to explain what happened. However, Adler finds their story hard to believe and starts suspecting them of their friend's murder. That night, Kelly confides in Dominique, admitting his plan to avenge his mother's death. However, she suggests that getting Nelson and the others to confess is a better approach than resorting to violence. Kelly agrees with her, and they share a close moment together. The next day, Kelly intentionally provokes one of the bullies, Tony, in chemistry class, hoping to make him confess to Bernice's murder. Initially, Tony manages to control himself, but when Kelly makes fun of his girlfriend, Sarah, he loses his temper and throws acid at Kelly. Unfortunately, due to his powers, Tony ends up burning himself and dies on the spot. Witnessing all this, Dominique becomes enraged at Kelly, compelling him to leave. At night, a grieving Sarah meets Nelson, and they conspire to avenge Tony's death. Sarah informs Nelson about a vine from the cemetery that made Kelly vomit. Together, they head to the graveyard to retrieve it, planning to use it as a weapon against Kelly. The following day, Gus takes his sons to football practice, where Adler notices the chain used by the bullies on Gus's truck. He questions Nelson and Reed about it, but they deny having any information. At that moment, Kelly arrives at the practice ground with an electric drill, wearing a piece of Nelson's clothing. He threatens to harm himself until Nelson confesses to his crimes. However, the bully is prepared and has brought weed juice from the cemetery. As Kelly starts drilling, Nelson sprays the weed juice on him, momentarily halting his progress. Adler pleads with Kelly to stop, but he continues to drill into his knees, causing pain to Nelson until he confesses. Dominique arrives amid the chaos, convincing Kelly to cease his actions. In the midst of the turmoil, Gus steals Adler's gun and, in a fit of rage, shoots Kelly. Unfortunately, he and Nelson are shot in return, and both die on the spot. After the incident, Dominique persuades Kelly to relinquish his powers and return to a normal life. Adler also decides to help Kelly and takes them and Red Elk to Pflueger's cemetery, where a ritual is performed. They dig into the ancient grave, and Red Elk explains that Kelly needs to die to release the powers. Hearing this, Kelly attempts to flee, but a police officer shoots him, inadvertently striking Dominique and himself as well. Mortally wounded, Kelly shares a final kiss with Dominique before she passes away. He then consumes Pflueger's heart, bringing an end to his powers. Following this, Adler shoots Kelly, killing him. In the last scene, police officers transport Dominique and Kelly's lifeless bodies in a van. Suddenly, on the way, Dominique awakens, revealing that she has now acquired Kelly's healing power. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing.